Hello, my friend. This is Clyde. There is a God. Allow me to use the Bible as the basis of my defense that there is a God. It is the most credible and authentic publication that provides us with irrefutable arguments to substantiate the existence of God. The Bible is a compilation of 66 books written by nearly 40 different men, independent of each other over a period of approximately 1,500 years. The Bible states clearly that the writers were inspired by God, or as we have grown to accept, the Bible is God-breathed, which makes this literary item accurate and free of the bias and socio-cultural prejudices of the writers. From this book, therefore, I want to make my first and most fundamental argument. In Psalm 14 and Psalm 54, two separate chapters, there is an exact opening line. The fool hath said in his heart, there is no God. An interesting assertion if ever there was, but it creates a point from which to argue. Therefore, I propose to deny the existence of God is to establish one's self as moronic. God is not engaging in a spat or street brawl to defend himself. He is simply stating a truth. To deny his existence is to be a fool. There is a God, unequivocally so. To speak like that is to provide scientific proof that this God who I claim to exist is who he claims to be. In the absence of recorded data by eyewitnesses from the beginning of time, we have to take a step of faith. Hebrews 11 and verse 3 says, by faith we understand that the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. This Bible gives us a carefully written account of the beginning of time, but we cannot scientifically prove it. We hear a God says of himself, I am Alpha and Omega, meaning he is the beginning and the end. Note well that God did not say he was present at the beginning and he will be at the end, because God cannot refute God. If at best he was at the beginning, then he has to be disqualified as God, because there would be something, a living being, who made the beginning, and there is no such being. So God says that he is the beginning. That's an audacious claim to make, presenting himself as immortal, as one with no beginning and consequently no end. But this is what God claims of himself. The text from Hebrews 11 does its best in representing the basis of our belief in God. In the beginning, God, who is the beginning, made the universe by speaking. His favorite words were, let there be, because nothing was there before what God spoke into existence. God did not acquire raw material from a source greater than himself to make earth and stars and animals and plants. God made all that we see by his word, not by what was present. How do I know that? By faith. If you understand faith to be the assurance of what we do not see. Remember, there is no account of eyewitnesses who were there. God himself was there. My assurance of what happened as having happened is based purely on faith. But let us take one item from what we know as the creation story. God made animals that live in water, some live in the air, and some live on land. 3 distinct categories of life to exist in 3 distinct environments. This God did not consult a leading zoologist, but he spoke, and fish, birds, and animals appeared in their respective environments. Then God spoke further that each species within each category should produce offsprings of their kinds. He did not do anything or consult anyone, but what he spoke, we now have the privilege in our lifetime as seeing them be exactly what God said. And thousands of years after God spoke them into existence. I want to present one more argument on the existence of God, a loving, just, and powerful being. Humans who God created are probably the most complex of God's created beings, and God established a relationship with this highest order of creatures. That went on for a while in the early days of earth, but then an intruder, an impostor, one who wanted to be not like God, but to be God, invaded the human territory and with his cheapened charisma managed to get them to disobey God, knowing full well that that would result in dire consequences. The consequences God called death, and that consequence became part of the transmitted data from one generation to the next. Faith tells us that God loved the people he created, not just the two, but all subsequent human beings. And so God unveiled a plan of redemption. The plan demanded that the second member of the Godhead, God is three in one, who we later come to know as Jesus, translated himself from being a divine supernatural being to becoming a human being, except he divinely did not inherit the sin gene. His purpose was to redeem or be the path by which humans could reconnect with God, their creator. Faith in this God, who we have come to know, tells us that Jesus had to die, and he did. He died a most heinous, brutal death. But that death was the price that had to be paid to redeem humans back to God. Since the earliest days of occupation on this earth, which was cursed, humans die and they decay, returning to where they came from, the earth. Jesus died, but he did not decay. He did not become dust to dust. Rather, 3 days after his death, he came back from the dead alive in a new imperishable body. This was the last big piece of the redemption process to reconnect humans with God. Incidentally, Jesus, the Son of God, is the only spiritual icon who came back from the dead alive and justified the claim that he is not only Alpha, the beginning, but he is Omega, the end. He can never die. He is the end, not end at the end, but end himself. This is singularly indisputable. The God who I learned about by faith, having no eyewitness account of what happened in the beginning, this very God offers me proof of who he is. And one of that proof, the biggest of them all, is salvation. And if I accept it, I will be restored to eternal relationship with God. Hear me well. All this time I have accepted and found to be true that there is a God and that he did what faith tells me he did. I therefore would be a fool to refute the redemption that God offers me based on my refusing to believe that there is a God, because this redemption that God offers me reestablishes me in a relationship with the one who made me. Because I know God is, I accept this redemption. And this eternal God, this one true God, has made me into a new creation. 2 Corinthians 5 and verse 17. I can therefore state categorically that the God who claims that he is the beginning has proven that it is true, has proven that he is authentic, real, all-powerful, because I can attest to the claims of the redemptive package that they are all true. No other God in the history of the earth can ever make that claim or that offer and be real, because they are not God. At best, they are the works of men. Isaiah 40 verses 18 to 20. Only God, the Alpha and Omega, the Eternal One, the Rock, he alone silences all fools, refutes all claims against himself, and transcends all of time and eternity. He is God without a doubt. He is God without contest. He is God without equal. He is because he is God, the truth and life. I conclude by stating without fear of contradiction that you would be well advised to denounce the derogatory title of fool and its corresponding claims that there is no God, and accept God as real. He changes lives. He gives you hope and a future. He becomes to you the missing feature of your life, the giver of life himself that you need and you cannot do without. Indeed, my friend, there is a God, the only true God. He gave you life that is fleeting and which ends in death. And he offers you life eternal when you will never die. I rest my case.